Elon Musk was mocked live on air for peddling conspiracy theories. Minutes later, he dropped undeniable proof of a billion-dollar plot. What happened next stunned the world. The morning after, the Tesla showroom still stank of scorched wiring. Security alarms chirped uselessly in the background as Elon Musk walked across shattered glass and twisted signage in San Francisco's Soma district. He knelt where the main display once stood. There was no spray paint, no slogans, only laminated signs, identical down to the font, and a half-open binder near a back exit. Inside the binder were spreadsheets, shift schedules, talking points. One name appeared again and again, indivisible. This wasn't spontaneous. It was scheduled. That evening, Musk appeared on Viewpoint Tonight, a center-left panel show with an audience of millions. Midway through the segment, the host, smirking, leaned in. "Elon, don't you think your paranoia is getting in the way of your judgment? You're blaming billionaires for broken windows." The studio laughed. Elon didn't. "I'm not blaming," he said. "I'm documenting." The clip went viral within minutes. MSNBC's headline read, "Musk pushes Soros conspiracy. No evidence provided." Twitter timelines flooded with memes. Hashtag #TinfoilTesla trended. By 9:22 p.m., the consensus was clear: Elon Musk was unraveling. 2 hours later, Musk stood outside the same shattered showroom with local press crowded around. He held the binder in one hand, a clicker in the other. Behind him, a screen illuminated in the dark, playing sync surveillance footage from 5 cities: Chicago, Denver, Phoenix, Minneapolis, Los Angeles. Each timestamp aligned. Each crowd held the same signs, moved in choreographed waves, followed near identical chants. Each was labeled with a city name and a directive, framed Tesla as climate hypocrisy. "This wasn't protest," Musk said. "It was manufacturing. Funded manufacturing." He walked off before taking questions. By morning, hashtag Indivisible Exposed was trending globally. But for Musk, that wasn't the moment that mattered. It was what came next. At SpaceX headquarters, a flash drive sat waiting. Unmarked, encrypted. Passed to him quietly the night before by a contractor who had remained silent for months. On it, 193 emails, one subject line repeated throughout: Operation Eclipse. The language was dry. Strategic. Cold. Activation zones, sentiment seeding, optics management. What it described wasn't protest, it was design. A deliberate effort to manipulate public sentiment. And at the center of it was Tesla. Worse, one funding spreadsheet was partially unredacted. A $3.2 million transfer from Freedom Forward Trust caught Musk's eye. The name sounded familiar. It didn't take long to trace. Within hours, Musk's legal team confirmed its donor structure, a Soros-linked vehicle under the Open Society Foundations. He convened a meeting that same afternoon. Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, X, all represented. "You're not just accusing a billionaire," one advisor warned. "You're implicating the nonprofit sector and half the activist infrastructure in America." Musk looked at them. "I'm not accusing," he said. "I'm revealing." The next tweet hit 6.3 million views in 19 minutes. The attacks on Tesla weren't random. They were funded. Choreographed. "We'll show you how they bought your trust and sold it back to you." What came next made the showroom look like a spark. A reckoning was coming. And the fire hadn't even started. By dawn, the media had split cleanly. Some outlets amplified Soros's response. An outrageous and dangerous distortion. Others hedged, describing the allegations as troubling but unproven. But the real storm wasn't on the news. It was inside Slack channels, encrypted signal threads, and internal comms teams at digital agencies. And it was starting to leak. At 11:14 p.m. the night before, Elon received a secure message. It came from a burner address, cross-signed with an internal civic influence credential. The message was short. "I was part of the activation team for Phoenix. This wasn't protest. It was contempt. I have the footage. And I'm done hiding." The signature was a single name, Ava. Within hours, Musk's legal team verified metadata and time codes. Ava's footage didn't just confirm the choreographed chants, it revealed camera placements, pre-built cutaways, and time-stamped uploads to third-party content syndicators. "Real protest," the file read. "Must be ready for redistribution within 10 minutes of capture." She wasn't alone for long. The following morning, Maya Ellison appeared in a small rented press room in Washington, D.C. A former regional coordinator for the Civic Influence Collective, she came with no entourage, just a folder, a tired expression, and one sentence that made every newsroom pause. For 6 years I helped build illusions. She spoke without bitterness. Her tone was calm. Professional. What had happened to Tesla, she said, crossed a line. This wasn't about justice. It was about optics. Psychological attrition. She held up a single memo, Narrative Reliability Protocol, Q4, Tesla Sector. It outlined content timelines, demographic targeting, and instructions for shaping emotional response across platforms. One directive. Exploit youth dissonance. Link climate hypocrisy to corporate betrayal. Execute within 72-hour frame. Maya didn't claim Soros had given orders. He didn't have to, she said. He funded architects. They funded engineers. The system flowed downward. When a reporter asked if this was anti-capitalist activism, Maya shook her head. It wasn't activism. It was marketing. Dressed in ideology. By midday, the clip had reached over 91 million views. But it wasn't just her face on screen, it was Elon's words from the previous night. You trust these people. You follow them. You never knew they were paid to mislead you. That same afternoon, Musk met privately with Senator Rachel DeWitt, chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Information Integrity. Hours later, she announced an emergency hearing. We have reason to believe coordinated information operations are being conducted under the guise of nonprofit advocacy. Open Society Foundations released a second statement that evening. Ms. Ellison's testimony misrepresents the purpose and structure of our philanthropy. We do not fund coordinated misinformation. It didn't matter. Because at 8:48 p.m., the National Ethics Forum announced what no one expected, a live-streamed panel, no moderator, no script, just 2 chairs. One for Elon Musk. One for George Soros. To the disbelief of nearly everyone watching the saga unfold, both men agreed. Over 20 million people tuned in. Soros went first. Mr. Musk, your companies profit from disruption. Don't pretend this is about truth. Musk responded calmly. You weaponized philanthropy. You built confusion, then called it democracy. Then he displayed a tablet with the Operation Eclipse chain. These were sent to federal investigators this morning. With corroboration. Soros was unmoved. Emails can be faked. Perception is not proof. Musk looked out at the crowd. When deception becomes systemic, sunlight is the only proof that matters. The feed ended. But something irreversible had begun. The illusion had cracked, and the institutions built to protect it were starting to sweat. The marble hall outside room 342 of the Russell Senate office building echoed with a subdued kind of noise. Press whispering in corners, aides flipping through packets, one protester's sign accidentally crumpled beneath a folding chair. Inside, Elon Musk sat motionless behind a long table flanked by his legal counsel. He didn't check his phone. He didn't fidget. If he was tired, it didn't show. Senator Rachel DeWitt opened the hearing. Mr. Musk, this subcommittee has convened to examine allegations of coordinated influence operations targeting your company. Do you stand by your claims? I do, Musk said plainly. And I brought documentation. What followed wasn't dramatic. There was no table slamming or fiery exchange. It was something rarer, procedural clarity. Musk handed over a flash drive to the clerk. On it, verified financial transfers, Slack exports, and internal memos from the Civic Influence Collective. One document drew murmurs from the aides seated behind the dais. Narrative Synchronization Worksheet, Tesla Q4. It outlined themes, rollout windows, hashtags to avoid, and fallback talking points in case of exposure. Senator Braun leaned in skeptically. Mr. Musk, with respect, how does one billionaire accuse another of staging protests and expect us to treat it as more than paranoia? Musk didn't flinch. It's not paranoia, he said. It's structure. 5 cities. Same hour. Same slogans. Pre-positioned live streams. If this were retail, we'd call it franchising. Behind him, a screen lit up. The timeline was stark: Phoenix, Denver, Chicago, Los Angeles, Minneapolis. Each activation timestamped. Each guided by a calm script traced back to the same coordination cloud server. Then came the affidavit, Maya Ellison's sworn testimony, confirming the system, the funding chain, and the stated objective: dismantle Tesla's image through youth-targeted optics. The session adjourned at 3:08 p.m. Musk stayed behind to speak with staffers. But the story had already jumped ahead. At 3:27 p.m., a process server stepped into Tesla headquarters in Santa Clara. In his hand, a 28-page civil filing. George Soros versus Elon Musk. Cause: defamation. Damages sought: $100 million. The document was intentionally surgical. It cited reckless falsehood, malicious inference, and irreparable reputational harm. But it wasn't just a lawsuit. It was strategy. It was delay. It was message control. Musk didn't wait. That evening, standing beside attorney Naomi Sinclair, he addressed the suit directly. If exposing manipulation is defamation, I welcome the courtroom. But let's be clear, truth is not defamatory. He held up a printout from the leaked documents. This directive, right here, reads, if exposed, pivot to litigation. Silence the source. He let the word settle. The war had moved from hashtags and hearings to subpoenas and sealed evidence. But the silence Musk had cracked was no longer containable. The system had blinked. And someone, somewhere inside it, was about to speak again. The message arrived at 6:16 a.m., encrypted, unsigned, but authenticated through a known press credential once tied to Maya Ellison's investigative network. It contained a list of 5 names. Not activists. Not nonprofit executives. Influencers. All had mocked Musk, questioned Ava's footage, and dismissed Maya's testimony. All had massive followings across platforms. And all, according to the message, had been paid. Verify every contract, Musk told his team. No leaks until we're sure. By midday, the documents surfaced, a ledger marked influence outreach, high visibility assets, pulled from the Civic Influence Collective's budgeting archive. Payment descriptions were oblique. Digital ethics engagement, platform climate collaboration, youth messaging consultancy. But the line items were clear. $420,000. $125,000. $90,000. All routed through shell organizations. All timed within weeks of Tesla-related disruptions. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, a final column sent a chill through Musk's legal team. Narrative reliability score. Each influencer ranked by consistency, crisis performance, and resonance potential with progressive affiliated platforms. The following evening, at precisely 8 p.m., Musk went live. There were no graphics, no trailer. Just a camera, a blank screen, and him. For years, he began. We've debated bias, fake news, and disinformation. But we assumed the people we trusted were speaking freely. They weren't. Then came the names. The first, a libertarian podcast host with a reputation for skewering tech billionaires. Paid $125,000 to reframe Tesla's workplace innovation narratives. Deliverables included posts mocking Ava, and a video calling Maya a scripted defector. The second, a columnist at a mainstream outlet. Paid $78,000 through a residency that produced no content, except a viral op-ed titled The Cult of Elon. 3 more followed. All had publicly echoed Soros's defense. All were paid. All were scored. The reaction was immediate. Hashtag echo chamber trended in under 7 minutes. One influencer deleted her Twitter archive midstream. Another went private. A third tweeted, "We all take consulting gigs. That's not corruption." But the public wasn't debating ethics. They were reckoning with deception. One line from the ledger cut deepest. Invisibility is the value. Exposure neutralizes utility. At 8:57 p.m., Maya Ellison sent Elon a message. The echo chamber is broken. You did it. But Elon didn't reply. Not because it was over. But because he understood something Soros's team had always relied on. Deniability wasn't about winning. It was about outlasting scrutiny. And scrutiny was moving closer to the courtroom. That night, Soros's legal team filed a motion, freeze all further evidence releases. Depose Maya. Suspend disclosures. Their intent was clear: stall. Delay. Mute. Elon's response came live again. When silence is enforced, you speak louder. And when trust is commodified, you bring the receipts. This wasn't a media war anymore. It was deposition season. Outside the federal courthouse in Manhattan, the barricades went up before sunrise. Press vans swarmed the block. One side of the street chanted, "Defend democracy." The other held signs reading, "Narrative is not truth." Inside, no cameras were allowed. But no one doubted the outcome would leak. George Soros versus Elon Musk. Civil cause, defamation and reputational harm. Damages sought, $100 million. Soros entered with a team of 6 attorneys. No commentary. No posture. Just precision. Musk followed quietly. No tie, no theatrics. He carried a single manila folder. His team stayed silent. Opening statements began with Malcolm Reyes, Soros's lead counsel, establishing the stakes. This case is not about philanthropy. It is about power abused under the cloak of free speech. Mr. Musk made deliberate, false statements that incited harassment, endangered lives, and undermined institutions. The courtroom was still. Reyes's tone was sharp, but unhurried. Reputation, he said, is not immune to wealth. And even billionaires can defame. Then came Naomi Sinclair, representing Musk. Her tone was colder. Surgical. This is not a case of defamation. It is a case of disclosure. What my client presented was corroborated by documentation, verified sources, and sworn testimony. Our argument is simple: the truth, however uncomfortable, is not defamatory. The trial moved swiftly. Evidence chains were displayed without drama, emails from Operation Eclipse, Slack messages outlining influencer payment strategies, timestamps matching coordinated protests. But it wasn't until day 3 that the fulcrum arrived. Your Honor, Sinclair said, we call our next witness, Fiona Langford. Murmurs swept the room. Soros's team froze. Fiona Langford, former Director of Operations at Public Architectures for Democracy, an open society grantee with disbursement authority across civic influence programs, was sworn in without objection. Her tone was flat. Her effect neutral. Yes, I authorized Q4 disbursements to Civic Influence Collective. Yes, I reviewed documentation linking those disbursements to Operation Eclipse. When asked if George Soros was aware, she paused. He received briefings. Eclipse was flagged for reputational risk. We were instructed to proceed with multiple layers of insulation. Objection. Hearsay. Overruled. The relevant documents had already entered discovery. Fiona opened a binder. These are internal memos. These are payment schedules. And this, she turned a final page, is the memo signed by the Executive Coordination Group. George Soros was on that distribution list. Reyes leaned forward but said nothing. The courtroom held its breath. Why now? Sinclair asked. Fiona didn't hesitate. Because the line between influence and manipulation is no longer blurry. It's gone. And we kept going anyway. That sentence broke containment. Headlines outside screamed within the hour. Soros insider confirms orchestrated targeting. Narrative protocols entered into record. But inside the chamber, Musk said nothing. He didn't need to. The structure had cracked. And the insulation had begun to burn. The jury returned in just under 3 hours. For a civil trial with hundreds of exhibits, hours of testimony, and 2 billionaires at war, it was fast, uncomfortably so. Some whispered that the speed signaled a compromise. Others thought it pointed to certainty. When the foreperson stood, they didn't glance at notes. On the charge of defamation against Mr. Elon Musk, we find in favor of the defendant. The silence in the courtroom wasn't relief. It was weight. Even Soros's attorneys didn't immediately react. Across the aisle, Musk remained still. No grin. No nod. Just an exhale. Judge Vanessa Stroud, rarely quoted and almost never editorial, leaned forward to speak. This case has revealed not only a dispute between individuals but a coordinated system of influence cloaked in civic language. The court believes the submitted evidence, documented and corroborated, points to a practice of strategic manipulation that warrants scrutiny beyond the civil scope of this proceeding. Then she struck the gavel. Legal closure. Institutional opening. Outside, the narrative had already jumped. #narrative collapse hit #1 globally. Commentators on both sides abandoned their scripts. Some called it vindication. Others called it a chilling moment in the history of protest. But no one called it fiction. At the courthouse steps, Musk addressed the cameras. This was never about reputation. Not mine, not his. This was about whether public trust can be bought, packaged, and deployed at will. It was about whether truth still matters in a system designed to obscure it. He paused. We can disagree on values. But when dissent is manufactured, it stops being democracy. And starts being design. His words played on every network, clipped into reels and stitched into timelines. But the real fallout was quieter. Within 48 hours, 3 senior directors across open society-linked sub-foundations resigned. One press release cited strategic realignment. Another didn't cite anything. The Department of Justice confirmed an inquiry into Freedom Forward Trust, the shell entity that first connected the protest funding web to Soros's philanthropy network. Treasury officials followed with a preliminary audit. Maya Ellison, now under federal witness protection, was granted conditional immunity. But she didn't disappear. 2 weeks later, she launched a new project, Echolite. Its mission: protect insiders across tech, media, and government willing to expose institutional manipulation. Its first backers included a mid-sized AI ethics firm, Transparency International, and Elon Musk. The system hadn't fallen. Not yet. But the structure that protected it had begun to bend. From his estate, George Soros issued one final statement: "I built systems to respond to power." Somewhere, they began to produce it. That distinction matters. Then he withdrew. No interviews. No follow-ups. His foundation suspended all US-based political funding indefinitely. It wasn't a defeat. It was an admission. The influence machine had become too visible to run quietly. And the people who once operated it understood opacity was over. Weeks passed. The headlines thinned. Cable panels moved on. But inside encrypted channels, a new phrase emerged, quietly, cautiously, but unmistakably: the post-narrative era. It wasn't a movement. Not yet. But the edges of something new had begun to form. Musk returned to California without fanfare. There were no celebrations, no curated interviews. He did not retweet the verdict. Instead, he resumed his usual rotation: Tesla board meetings, Neuralink briefings, late-night system reviews at SpaceX. But the world didn't resume with him. At the National Institute for Civil Discourse, a surprise panel convened: political scientists, digital ethicists, a retired judge. The question wasn't whether Elon Musk had been right. The question was whether everything that followed proved he had been necessary. At X, formerly Twitter, moderation policy shifted again, this time quietly removing autolabels from protest footage, pending new review standards. Internal teams began a policy audit on content amplification contracts. The old guard called it overreach. Others called it overdue. And in the heart of Washington, the Senate Subcommittee on Information Integrity reconvened behind closed doors. Staffers passed around a newly declassified memo from the DOJ inquiry. Its title: Networked Influence via Nonprofit Infrastructure, a Framework. Its final paragraph included a single sentence: future threats to democratic discourse may emerge not from foreign actors, but from domestic intermediaries obscured by philanthropic insulation. One line was redacted. Maya Ellison, operating from a secure location, issued her first formal statement since the verdict. "We did not build propaganda. We built pipelines. The propaganda flowed later. We didn't notice, because the pipelines worked." That same week, Echolite announced its first 3 legal protections for whistleblowers and media analytics firms. More were coming. Funding arrived from unexpected corners: Scandinavian research institutions, civil liberties nonprofits, even a conservative think tank known more for deregulation than transparency. Then came the live stream. No promo. No camera crew. Just Elon Musk, alone, backlit by a single lamp, the soft blue haze of monitors behind him. "No one elected me to do this," he said. His voice was flat. Tired even. "No one asked me to step into it. But once I saw it, how it worked, how they built it, I knew I couldn't unsee it." He paused, looking past the lens for a moment, before locking eyes with it again. Power that hides in silence doesn't fear confrontation. It fears recognition. It fears you noticing that the terms of your beliefs were preloaded. That your doubts were manufactured by teams with whiteboards. He leaned forward slightly. "We spoke up this time. Maybe next time it's you." Then the screen faded to black. But this time, it didn't feel like a conclusion. It felt like instructions.